Well, welcome back, everyone. Session 2, day 2. And once again, it's jam-packed. I hope you enjoyed morning tea. I didn't even get to leave the room. So those of you playing a lot at home and myself, we both missed out. Was it great? Was it good? I should rush out and find something. But I've got a very interesting first talk, so I don't think I'll be leaving the room at all. Now, our first presenter, as she comes up here, you've seen her around over the last day, I'm sure. Now, we're very lucky that her presentation is now at lunchtime, because if it was tomorrow at lunchtime, she wouldn't be here. Do you know where she'd be? State of Origin lunch. What colour do you reckon she'd be wearing? That's right. How did you know that? She's wearing blue. Do you want to come up here, Miss Lee? Okay, so this is Lee Kingdom. She is the CEO of Eastern Metals. Like me, she grew up in a little remote mining town and got the exploration bug well and truly into her bones early on. So she's going to talk to us about 2 advanced exploration programs providing de-risked exposure to strategic and energy transition minerals in a Tier 1 jurisdiction. Would you please make her very welcome?
Thank you for the introduction, and it's great to be here. I'll get cracking. Eastern Metals is a base and precious metals explorer with 2 advanced exploration projects. The Homer Bullion with a 3.1 million tonne resource in the Northern Territory, and Browns Reef in the Cobar Basin of New South Wales. Those 2 projects were acquired from Wesfarmers prior to listing in October 2021. And they offer de-risked exposure to strategic metals such as copper and zinc, which are recognised globally as strategic minerals. We also have the Thompson Project, a greenfields project in northern New South Wales, but in my time today I'm just going to focus on the Northern Territory and Browns Reef. But first, the corporate snapshot. We currently have a market cap of 3 million, with about 1.1 million in the bank as of the 31st of March this year. We recently raised $1 million last month through Taylor Collison, so the updated cash on hand will be in the June quarterly. We have a highly experienced board and management team, which have experience in exploration, development, monetisation, and governance. You can read more about them on our website if you wish. As for myself, I'm an exploration geologist by trade. I grew up in a mining manufacturing town in South Australia, so I worked for BHP for a period of time. My family did, and my mother was actually a geological drafter in the geology department. So the resources sector has been a big part of my life, and it's an industry that I'm quite passionate about. I'll also take the time to mention Samantha Murray, our senior exploration geologist. She also has a degree in ag science, so she has done a great job in developing relationships within the local communities in which we operate, both in New South Wales and the Northern Territory. Before I dive into our projects, I would just like to talk about copper at a sort of a high macro level. Copper has traditionally been seen as a leading economic indicator for economic health, but now it's being viewed more in terms of energy. Currently we use about most copper demand is about 22% of that comes from energy, but that's likely to change in the next 2 to 3 decades because of the way in which we both produce and consume energy. Back in March, JP Morgan put out an interesting report called Electrovision by Michael Sembalest, and that was modelled on energy consumption being sort of consistent with the past 2 decades, which hasn't changed much. But there was a very, very interesting caveat in that report in that AI and data centres are likely to change that. So it's now predicted that more energy will be required for the AI revolution. It's going to outstrip the requirements for a future fleet of EVs in the United States. Moving on to the Arunta project in the Northern Territory, our tenement package is located halfway between Tennant Creek and Alice Springs. Homer Bullion is located 25 kilometres off the Stuart Highway, and it's located wedged between the Stuart Highway and the Darwin-Adelaide Railway line and the Amadeus gas pipeline to the east. We are focused on the northern group of tenements. We have Prospect D, which is a copper-nickel mineralisation that's been mapped for 2 kilometres at surface. We have Mulbangus, which is to the northwest of Homer Bullion, and then of course we have the 3.1 million tonne copper resource at Homer Bullion. This is a long section of Homer Bullion, and it's a structurally controlled deposit made up of 3 lodes, upper, lower and south. And in 2022, Eastern Metals drilled 4 diamond holes and increased the resource from 2.5 million to 3.1, which is about 25%, and increased the contained metal by 30%. So those sorts of results are encouraging, particularly given the lodes are open along strike and at depth. So future drilling is likely to increase that resource. This is a highly technical figure. It shows a sort of simplified plan view of the structure. So it's thought that the mineralisation is concentrated in the hinge zones of the folds. And those pink shaded areas show areas of for drilling. So they correspond with a magnetic high. The next figure zooms right out. So we've got Homer Bullion to the bottom right there, and then Mulbangus about 9 kilometres to the northwest. And you can see there's quite a significant magnetic trend between the two. Early this month, Eastern Metals was awarded a $100,000 grant to co-fund an induced polarisation survey. And we're looking there to generate drill targets, and I'm interested to see if this is analogous to KGL's Jervois deposit, which has a strike length of about 12 kilometres with a series of mineralised pods along strike. It's the same geological province, so integrating the IP survey with all the existing data that we have, we're looking to generate drill targets and follow up with drilling. Moving on to the Cobar Basin, this is quite a busy slide, but it's just to give you a bit of an overview of the activity in the region. Back in 2022, Metals Acquisition acquired the CSA copper mine from Glencore for about $1.1 billion and listed on the ASX in February this year in an oversubscribed IPO. They raised $325 million. Earlier this month, they signed an agreement with Polymetals for investment to get the Endeavour mine up and going with a view to toll treating their zinc ore at that site. So there's a fair bit happening. I'll also take the time to mention Kingston Resources. Andrew Corbett spoke yesterday. They're currently mining gold, but they're looking at recommissioning their base metals plant, and they're within 100 kilometres of Browns Reef. Peel Mining are in the throes of developing their 4 projects to the northwest of Browns Reef, and of course Australian Gold Copper had some great high-grade hits back in mid-May, so that's certainly put Cobar back on the radar. But I think Cobar Basin is not too dissimilar to Mount Isa and Kalgoorlie in that it's very much open to consolidation. So it'll be really interesting to see how this plays out in the next few years. Zooming now into Browns Reef. Browns Reef is a structurally controlled deposit associated with the Rara Fault. And recently 2 high priority targets were identified, Kelpie Hill and Windmill Dam to the north and south of Evergreen. So thinking to date has been that Browns Reef has been made up of 2 high-grade zones, Pineview and Evergreen. It's not and with a grade dropping off in between. But we're looking to see, test to see whether mineralisation extends along strike. So a drilling application was submitted this week, and field work will continue there. We also have an exploration target for Browns Reef of about 27 to 37 million tonnes. The next slide, this is a long section between Pineview and Evergreen, and you can see that it's open at depth and along strike. Coming up, we're looking to continue with the field work to identify pathfinder elements such as lead and arsenic to test mineralisation along the Warrara Fold. It's quite an interesting area in that there are tertiary basalts, much younger rocks that mask the mineralisation at surface. So the PXRF soil testing has been fantastic in identifying those areas of mineralisation, and we're in the process of designing an IP survey to identify what's beneath the basalt. And again, so we're looking at drill testing to see whether the mineralisation extends north and south of Pineview, Evergreen, and potentially further north. So in summary, Eastern Metals has a highly experienced board and management team, and given its exposure, it offers a low risk exposure to strategic metals, given that we only have a market cap of about 3 million. So there's potential for upside there. And we have sort of a number of drilling programs sort of up and coming. Thank you for your time, and I will leave you with the disclaimer. Thank you.
Well done. Thank you so much. Now, you notice this individual, as she left the stage just then, she's all business up the top, but you have a look at her shoes. There's a bit of attitude in those shoes. I've become a bit fascinated at what we wear over our feet. I've been wearing my kick-ass high heels for the last 3 days, and I took them off last night. I thought, no, I'm wearing my flats. I like those ones. They've got a bit of attitude. The person that gets things done. You can tell a lot about people by the shoes they wear. My grandparents used to say, Jet, how's it going down there, buddy? Any standouts for you?
Yeah, quite a few,
No?
yeah.
You going to share them with us?
Yeah, that one was pretty good.
Okay, excellent. You got a tick there. Warrior's got a tick. Okay.
Yandal Resources.
You liked Yandal? Yeah. Okay, that was a good story.
A few others earlier that
And what has Dad said to you about uranium and those sorts of stocks?
not much actually, not much.
Yeah. Okay. Well, you're going to stay all day today.
Yeah, probably.
Good. You can help do the wrap up at the end. What I need is, what are you this year? 14?
Yeah,
24, I thought so. All right, that's our Jet down there. Now, our next presenter up on stage. So this team, every fortnight or so, they load up the company wagons, their Toyotas, their Prados, and they go on an expedition, and they go into the Murchison region of Western Australia, and they stop past a little place called Bindoon at the Bakehouse, which is world famous. In fact, so world famous that Prince Harry has stopped there. But their team like to stop there, and they in particular. Where's your CFO? Where's the CFO?
Is
he
he chatting, or is he?
He's
No,
out
he's
manning
not
the
even
booth.
watching me speak.
While Graham's at the booth, we can talk about him
He's at
then.
the
He's
booth.
particularly like, say, Pink Lamington, Jet.
He
Pink
always
Lamington
buys Pink
at the
Lamington.
Bindera. And that steals them for their little expedition that they're doing up in the Murchison. So they're drilling holes up there. For this lady here, Amanda Buckingham, who is their leader, geophysicist, she loves nothing better than drilling a couple of holes and getting some awesome results and then translating them into finds and hopefully getting you guys on board to be part of the story. So let's listen to Warrior Resources. This is Amanda Buckingham. She is their MD, and let's see what they find on their trips up north in the company utes.
Thank you, Chrissy. So Warrior is a gold company. We're a gold company with a steadfast commitment to growth. Growth through drilling. Drilling high-grade, good quality, mineable ounces of gold. And that is exactly what we've been doing up at our main project in the Murchison. So our project is called Golden Range. It has just over 800,000 ounces of gold and growing. It is about a 5.5-hour drive north of Perth with existing infrastructure. And importantly, it sits right in the middle of an active mining province, surrounded by deep tapping, long life mines. Now, I've squeezed a few photos hot off the press from site into this presentation for you today. I thought it would be nice to give you a bit of a pictorial overview of what we are doing. And by that I mean what we are doing right now. It's actually an exciting time for myself and the team because we are drilling as I speak. Now, we have 9 deposits in the portfolio at Golden Range, and we're currently drilling 2. But this is not any drill program for us. We took on this project about 16 months ago, and we have been actively drilling since that time. But to date, we had always drilled RC holes. This is the first time we've got a diamond rig out on site. Thank you, Top Drill. And what that means for us is that this is our first diamond program, but it's also the first in over 10 years at these 2 deposits. And it means that we can drill as deep as we need to drill to define these high-grade gold shoots below the shallow open pits across our project. So what you see here is the M1 pit. It's one of the smaller deposits in our portfolio. It's only 27,000 ounces at a grade of 2.9 grams per tonne. Now you can see that it has been previously mined. It was mined in the early 2000s, and they took out about 53,000 ounces of gold at a grade of 3.3 grams per tonne. Now, I like it and the team likes it because right now it's quite small, but it's open at depth, it's got good grade, and interestingly and encouragingly, it sits right next to our existing infrastructure. Right alongside the old processing plant. And you can see our office where the geos sit and work, the ROM. Our camp is around to the right if you go up to the northwest. So we would actually love this deposit to be full of deep tapping high-grade gold. We shall see. We got the samples to the lab yesterday. It's now a waiting game. One more photo before I go into the regular part of my presentation. This is now looking south, and I got the boys to get the drone out on site. They actually had a lot to do, but they humoured me. So this is looking south down the shear, and we actually own 70 kilometres of the main mineralised shear. It's quite a vast land package. Our largest deposit in the portfolio is called Ricardo, and you can see it there. There's a bit of morning fog still in the pits. It's quite a beast. It's 2.3 kilometres long. It's just under 500,000 ounces of gold. And we've been drilling it quite steadily since February when we started the program up again. And we are delighted with the results we're getting. My favourite intercept from February was 8 metres at 11.4 grams per tonne. Still very shallow, still only 148 metres down the hole. One more comment on my photos. Look at Sprite. It's 74,000 ounces just south of Ricardo. We haven't even touched Sprite or its southern neighbour Bug-eye yet. Still a lot to do. We're currently focused on drilling Ricardo, increasing that resource, and in parallel with drilling, we've got a JORC MRE update underway. So I've mentioned a couple of the deposits, but I'll just show you this map now. This is the plan view of our project. The Golden Range project is a north-south trending project that spans 70 kilometres. Most of the deposits sit in what we call the Golden Corridor. It's a 25-kilometre long stretch from Austin in the north to Bug-eye in the south. Within there are 736,000 ounces of gold. Each of the deposits is open at depth. We believe there's a plus 2 million ounce opportunity within that belt. We've been actively drilling at Austin, M1, Windenwell and Ricardo to date, and we plan to drill Bug-eye and Sprite later in the year. Now, in terms of our strategy for growth this year, our strategy is threefold. The first part is to drill, define and expand Ricardo, and we're well into that now with the diamond rig on site today. The second part of our strategy is to grow all the 6 resources within the Golden Corridor. And I should mention they're all on permitted mining leases, all connected by a haul road. The third part of our strategy, and probably the one that taps most into my background, I believe there's an incredible opportunity for additional discoveries along this shear. We own the 70 kilometres of the shear, and most of that has never been explored properly at all. And I'll show you that in a moment. So I'm just going to go through those three aspects of our growth strategy this year, just to show in more detail what I'm talking about. So this is a close-up of Ricciardo. On the right, you can see a plan view, so you're looking down on the resource. It's quite long, it's 2.3 kilometres long, and it's a classic orogenic gold deposit where it sits on a bend in the shear. It looks a bit like a banana. It's coloured blue, but a long, skinny banana. And we have drilled a long strike of that deposit since taking on the project, and we are getting good grades and good intercepts along the entire strike. I would say the northern end is probably the more interesting part at the moment, simply because of the width and continuity. On the left, you can see a long section through Ricciardo. So we're looking at the deposit through the earth, looking to the east or to the right. And you can see that there are quite a few high-grade shoots. There are two that we knew about prior to drilling, and there are two that we have modelled and drilled into since February. You'll also note that there's not a lot of consistent drilling below about 100 metres. So these deposits are open at depth, and there's a lot more that we plan to drill and define. If we just look at one more long section in the middle of the Ricciardo deposit, there's just one point I'd like to make. So the existing JORC resource you can see here, the lower grade part is it looks yellow on the screen, and then the higher grade part of the JORC resource, greater than 4 grams per tonne, is the green polygons. Now we designed a drill program to fill in the gaps in the higher grade part of the resource, and we were very pleased when the results came back showing us that high grade shoot is fairly continuous. We've got the 8 metres at 11.4, filling in the gap between the upper and lower part of the high-grade component. So we're getting better continuity, we're extending the high-grade shoots. What we're also doing is pushing out the envelope of the resource. You can see certain intercepts that are outside the boundary of the known resource. And we're also improving our understanding of the structural controls on the deposit. One quick cross-section, it wouldn't be right if I only showed a long section. So this is a cross-section through the northern part of the deposit. It's fairly steeply dipping, almost vertical here. And you can see we drilled holes 18 and 19 in December and got really good intervals. They both ended in gold mineralisation. We have now diamond-tailed both of these holes. You can see it's open to the east and at depth. And also, importantly, the continuity of the resource is increasing as we go into the fresh rock zone, which is what we love to see. Part 2 of our strategy, growing the resources along the Golden Corridor. There are 6 deposits, 736,000 ounces of gold, 18 historic pits, all on contiguous permitted mining leases. To date, we've extended Austin. We drilled it last year, 20 metres at 2 grams per tonne. M1 we've just drilled. Windon Well we drilled last year, and you can see a long section here through Windon Well. The reason I like Windon Well, it's actually on a parallel splay, not on the main shear, and it shows me that many of these parallel splays have the opportunity to be mineralised, which opens up the search space incredibly. Ricciardo, we've drilled and defined higher grade shoots, and as I mentioned, Sprite and Bug-eye, we haven't even touched yet. The third part of the strategy that I'm most excited about, we own 70 kilometres of the main mineralised shear. Most of it has not been explored properly at all, and by that I mean, for example, north of Austin, there's some older, early 2000s and some 1980s RAB drilling that's widely spaced, assayed only for gold. We've got 15 to 50 metres of cover along this shear. We simply don't know whether there are larger gold deposits north of Austin or not. There's no data yet. And likewise, south of Bugeye, before we hit the next mining lease at Coronama, until recently we weren't even sure where the shear went. So we've got vast parts of this long shear. We know it's a gold-bearing mineralised shear, but we know that it has not been explored adequately along most of it. So I see that as an incredible opportunity for us. Last point to make, not only is our ground incredibly prospective on its own, but when you look at it in context, what I'd like to note is that we are surrounded by long life, deep tapping mines. We've got Silver Lake on our west, Ramelius up to our northeast, Capricorn immediately south, and Golden Grove 29 Metals right alongside us. These are long life, deep tapping mines. We also own the entire Central Belt. There are copper and gold processing facilities all around us, and we have our own plant that could be upgraded if it were appropriate. And I love looking at analogues. If I look up at Ramelius looked like we look now a few years ago. They had shallow open pits with a sniff of deeper fresh rock gold. Fast forward now, and they've mined over 8 million ounces of gold, and they're mining at 1,500 metres below ground. That is what we're aiming for. The program, drilling, drilling, and more drilling. The board and the register, we've got a good register, a great board, experience, different backgrounds. We're well set up for what we need to do. In summary, some more photos. I promised someone a core photo. That's the only one the site team would send me. So we have 800,000 ounces of gold and growing. We sit in a well-mineralised, long-life mine region. We're intersecting good high-grade gold beneath shallow open pits, and we are currently drilling with our first diamond program underway. It is a fantastic time to be a Warriedar shareholder. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Now, just a reminder too, I didn't say to you, would you mind? Can you hear me? Yes, no? Yeah, okay, sorry. Just a reminder, I neglected to say, would you please put your mobile phones on silent? So if you can do that, that would be fantastic. Now, when our next team booked their spot here at Gold Coast Investors, their commodity, uranium, was already a pretty hot topic, and in fact the Americans had gone no more to Russia. There was a little bit of resurgence in prices. We were all getting excited. Things, where were they going to get it from? Could they get it from here? Well, they could if certain premiers, etc., would let us mine the stuff that we were exploring for. So this gentleman here is the shy and retiring Jonathan Fisher. So Jonathan likes to get into robust discussions with people about uranium. He called our Premier in Western Australia a couple of colourful words, did you not?
Oh, I think that was the media sort of
that
blowing that up a little
bloody
bit. There
me.
may have been a few words, not that colourful.
But what this fellow does is he is a really integral part to the education of Australians as to the possibilities and the opportunities that uranium does produce, as well as having a company that he is in charge of, which is actively looking for uranium to power the future. So I'm not sure where he's going to go with this conversation. He's got 15 minutes. Would you please make Justin, on behalf of Cauldron and the future of uranium mining in Australia, please, very welcome.
Thanks, Chrissy. You promised me 3 extra minutes, actually, because the last
Oh, yeah,
time
good.
I
I
was
owe him
a
a
bit under time. So, team, look, there's been obviously a whole lot happening in the nuclear sort of debate, and I'm going to talk a bit about that. So we're going to work through the preso, we'll see where we go, but I am also going to talk about Mr Dutton's announcement from yesterday, because it's super interesting. And if anyone had bothered to watch the announcement, I did. Fascinating, and what has also been fascinating is the anti-nuclear scare campaign that the Labor government has already kicked off. And so we've been waiting to see what the results have been, because Labor will be polling this, and if it's badly received, they'll go to a snap election. So the only results I've got so far is actually a Channel 9 internet poll, but it has got 10,000 responses. The question, very specific: would you vote for the coalition given yesterday's nuclear energy policy announcement? So very specific voting, not just do you support nuclear, and the policy that Mr Dutton announced, which was the 7 sites and a few other things. The result from 10,000 people, 60-40 in favour. I was actually quite surprised by that. It shows that the days of a simple three-eyed fish scare campaign are no longer are they effective in Australia. So my main aim is also to overturn a ban on uranium mining in WA, because that's where our project is, but I do comment a bit on nuclear. There is an interesting dynamic where if Dutton is successful and pulls off a victory, you better believe it is game on for uranium mining. However, if he doesn't, we can still have a world-leading uranium mining industry in WA without having to build reactors. And I'd just point to the fact that Kazakhstan, which accounts for about 45% of world production, Kazakhstan, everyone thinks it's next to Russia, it's ex-Soviet, they must have reactors. They don't. Kazakhstan has one small reactor, it's a research reactor. It's kind of similar to Sydney's, and yet they supply all 45% of the world uranium. So that is a strategy that Western Australia can go down, even if we don't end up building reactors. So in any event, very interesting time. I am quite engaged on social media with not only our investors, but anyone who wants to talk about uranium and nuclear. Always love a good meme. It's a good way to get engagement. And you know what we see here, and my key message to Australians, but particularly West Australians, funnily enough, mining uranium, if anyone cares about climate change, mining uranium is the single highest leverage activity any of us can do to help decarbonise. So Australia currently, roughly, produces about 5,000 tonnes of U a year out of South Australia. That 5,000 tonnes offsets 200 million tonnes of carbon every year, which is about a third of Australians' total emissions. So if we were to open up WA, which has a ban, and Queensland that has a ban on uranium, we would actually hit net zero. It's phenomenal, the impact, and that is all to do with energy density of uranium. So Cauldron has an absolutely cracking uranium project in Western Australia. We are drilling, and look, I did want to be out today, we'll skip through that, showing you the rig. What I've got is site photos, because actually we had an unseasonable rain event about 3 days ago, and the rig got bogged. So I can't actually show you the rig turning. It's a fairly long dirt track to get into site. So everything is ready. We've got a great relationship with our heritage, our Indigenous partners, the Thalangi up there. Again, one of these misnomers you'll hear is that Indigenous people don't like uranium mining. I'll admit there are patches in Western Australia that are problematic, especially to do with displaced Indigenous that were affected by Maralinga. But that's not a statewide issue, and our partners are fantastic. You can see a couple of them there. I'm talking mostly today about uranium mining because, as I say, it is different but related to nuclear. And the problem we have is where either voters or the Labor Party get confused and conflate the issues. So what I say to people, all I want to do is dig out uranium, export it to the world. You know what? That doesn't create nuclear waste in Australia. So we don't have to worry about all these emotive issues, which I admit, you know, they're a bit of an issue for people to get across. Now, why is this exciting? The rest of the world, Mr. Dutton wants to build reactors in Australia. I think it's a good idea too. But we may not. But the rest of the world is absolutely going crackers on nuclear. And recently there's a triple nuclear pledge signed. That means that we need a huge amount more uranium. And the US is now doubling down on this. On the left, they've banned uranium from Russia. It's kind of a problem because Russia accounted for 25% of their uranium supply. So what have they done? They've signed an agreement with Canada, France, Japan and the UK and are putting in $4.5 billion to encourage strategic allies in first world jurisdictions, so that's basically Canada and Australia, to open up their own uranium markets. Australia's not yet part of this because we have a Labor government that is resisting, although all I can say is behind closed doors the pressure is mounting. So the uranium should come from Australia. We've got more uranium than anyone else in the world. We're only about the fourth largest producer. And as you can see here, our production over time has been declining. So I say we offset currently 200 million tonnes a year of carbon. We used to offset 400 million tonnes a year of carbon. It's unbelievably effective. And we are now going to a policy position where uranium mining is actually going to start increasing again. That's very relevant for WA because WA is a mining state, best in the world. has relied on iron ore for too long. 85% of royalties are iron ore related. Iron ore is now in a very tricky position with the advent of the Simandou mine in Guinea and also the Brazilian iron ore coming back online. Iron ore prices are projected to halve. What does that do to state revenues? It means that state royalty revenues go down by about 45%. At the same time as mining jobs are declining in lithium and nickel. And just yesterday, MinRes announced 1,000 job cuts in iron ore in WA. So our argument is the uranium industry can contribute about 9,000 jobs and billions of dollars of revenue to the WA economy. So I'm very, very, very active at making sure that the WA public is aware of this situation, and it's actually been really remarkable, the change in sentiment in WA that we've achieved over the last sort of 6 months. So lots of stuff. Look, this all has to be stupidly sourced because ASX makes me do that to put it up on the ASX platform. But that's simply there's a lot of media there, and the WA community is now a little bit smarter. They also realise that they've got submarines, nuclear submarines coming to WA in 2027. Site works are already underway in Garden Island in Perth to host these subs. And in fact, the WA government has already agreed to host a radioactive waste repository within the Perth metro area for the sub-waste. So, the community doesn't blink, they don't care. But still, they can't technically mine uranium yet. And so the Liberals have come out and said, this is freaking ludicrous. That's fantastic. And you know, that was great that policy got out there, not because I expect the Liberals to win, but just to elevate the level of the discussion in the community. And that's exactly what has happened. And what does the community think? Well, here you have net positive support for uranium mining in WA, and that's actually old, it's a lot higher now. And you have majority of Labor voters want the policy change, the majority of Liberal voters, 34% of Greens voters, which is really interesting because they're called eco-modernists. It's a trend where Greenies are no longer tree huggers, they're carbon is bad and technology can play a role in changing that. That's an interesting trend. And also what it doesn't show here is 80% of One Nation voters are pro-nuclear and pro-uranium. That's important because if you have a protest vote in WA, it tends to go right, it tends to go to One Nation. So what the naysayers, they say, oh, but Australia, WA can't handle radiation. What they don't like to admit is actually WA is the largest handler of radiation in Australia because of the mineral sands we have in WA, as opposed to the mineral sands you have here in Queensland. WA's mineral sands are really heavy in monazite and they are extremely radioactive. So in terms of the radioactivity that we bring to the system, uranium mining would actually be in the minority. And so WA has the Australia's largest radiation monitoring system already in place. It can be improved. It also has this brilliant facility here, and I built that, I approved that. That's the Telus Holdings Sandy Ridge Radioactive Waste Repository. So we already have a radioactive repository. We got that approved in WA. Get this, got it approved in WA when it was banned. So uranium mining is banned. I can't extract uranium from the ground, but I'm allowed to put radiation back in the ground. So this is all this weird lack of common sense stuff. So we are also, sorry, I've done with that slide. Let's go, next slide. So what does uranium look like? Well, here it is. We produce it. It's all in a dust-controlled space. And now look at these people here. This is ASNO, government inspectors making sure everything's okay. That is that is yellow cake right there. Look at these guys. What kind of PPE do they have on? Right, they've got like a vest. Right, you can stand next to, so these people here, you stand next to a drum of yellow cake like that, you get more radiation flying from Perth to Sydney than you do standing next to a drum of yellow cake. Yellow cake itself is not that radioactive. So what happens in South Australia? Well, it goes in a shipping container or, tied down, trucked on public roads through the centre of Adelaide and out to Adelaide Port where it's stored, and then goes on a normal container ship. It's not that scary. So, at a time when WA is under threat from declining nickel prices, lithium prices, and iron ore prices, the uranium industry can be a saviour. What I'm saying is we should be planning for this. There's no point in waiting for the economy to go off the cliff and then go, oh, geez, what do we do about it? We should be a little bit ahead of this. So what have we done? We have developed our scoping study for Yanri. It's an absolute cracker. Right, back. 79% IRR. It's an absolute bull terror. To be fair, it is unfair to other uranium projects because ours is an ISR project, which is in situ recovery, which means you have low capex. I can fund that. That's super easy. And with low capex and low OPEX, all in sustaining cost, the IRR just bumps out. It's crazy. On today's pricing, that IRR is about 100% because that was done on a lower price assumption. And ISR is basically where we don't have to mine, we just drill a hole, we put some acid down there, we leave it to percolate for a while, and we suck it back up, and the uranium's gone into solution. So there's no ground disturbance. Now, that is, and even environmentalists agree, that is the best way that you can mine uranium. So we already have a lot of uranium, and it's open in every direction. And we have a drill campaign, so we've got 30 million pounds in JORC. We've got an exploration target for another 50, and I think there's actually a bit more than that. And we are drilling now. So what are you going to see from us? You're going to see there'll be an announcement pretty soon about the rig spinning. We then start giving results quite quickly because with uranium, you don't have to send the results off to a lab. You literally put a probe down the hole, and you have the result right there on the laptop. So we can batch out those results. I am also aiming to sell an asset or two, which would actually bring a bit more capital non-dilutively into the company. We get no value for them in the share price, so that is good. We have had a little bit of a tough month in uranium where the junior market has been off a bit, and so our share price is up on the year but down on the month. And with what we've got going on in the next months with 25,000 metres of drilling, it's an exciting time. I absolutely recommend you put us all on your watch list. And then my contact details. So that's my personal email address. My personal mobile phone number is on every ASX announcement. And you can follow me on LinkedIn and Twitter, and I reply. I'm kind of known as the most responsive CEO on the ASX. And I know a number of shareholders here follow me and actually talk to me. So please, maybe we've got some people who don't use Twitter, but the email and the phone number, give me a buzz if you've got any questions. Absolutely recommend having a look at the stock. And thank you for your time.
Are you sure? You've only taken an extra 20 seconds. You wanted 3 minutes. Are you saving that for the next conference? Can I just have a senior moment? Did I call you Justin? Bugger it, I knew I said one of my favourite children and I forgot your name. Jonathan, everyone. Thanks, Jonathan. I don't know how I did that. My apologies. You walk off stage and think, did I or didn't I say that? And I hope I did. My apologies. I know this fellow's name because he and I grew up together in the same town. We're both from Kalgoorlie. This is Andrew Muir, he of the very famous Human Beings from Kal. I played a bit of tennis with this fellow here. And he is a gung-ho explorer. He likes nothing better than going out there and finding things. In particular, he's got a bit of penchant for large grey elephants, and he likes to find them he's looking for them at the moment behind Boabs up in the northern part of Western Australia, and it's this beautiful country. I've seen some pictures of where Andrew and his team are exploring, and they're actually a pretty new team, so they've got a new level of enthusiasm, a new invigoration. They've got this fantastic geo on board with them called Anna Price, and the two of these together make a really impressive team. So the company is called SEPA Resources. They are looking hard, they're exploring hard. Let's see what they have to offer to you as potential investors. Please make him welcome.
Thanks very much, Chrissy. Pretty hard act to follow after Jonathan's talk. A bit more traditional here, but I'll give it a crack. Standard disclaimers, disclosures, etc. Read at your leisure. Given the current market conditions, we've all been a bit beaten over the head. Share prices have been down, but to me, that's just a fantastic opportunity to pick out quality stocks with good assets that have got long life potential and a lot of exploration upside. So SEPA's been around for a very long time, since 1987. A lot of people have either had SEPA shares, had a SEPA project, or they've worked for SEPA over the years. So it's got a very good history of geological excellence. However, we've got a relatively new team. I joined in October last year, and as Chrissy said, Anna joined, my gun exploration manager, in January this year. So we've been using the last couple of months to really get our head around all the opportunities that we've got and the quality of assets that we have. So on that front, multiple large-scale projects. We've got really good quality land, good jurisdiction, and decent chunky land holdings, not little postage stamps everywhere, so we can really get our teeth into it. Got a busy year ahead, as I sort of touched on. We've spent the last couple of months really doing all the hard work behind the scenes, which is not necessarily that market friendly, but you need to do it, making sure all our databases are up to date, doing the good geological work to really give us a good crack at the second half of the year. And as I touched on before, in terms of the current market, obviously it's a bit down, and it's the standard sort of proviso that you buy low and sell high. People generally talk about share prices, but that's also for good opportunity to do some deals and refine the portfolio. So we're looking at that as a good opportunity to maybe bring some assets in and have a look around and see what quality things we can add. So a quick corporate snapshot, only 228 million shares on issue. Treasury's quite good. We've got over 2 million in cash, and we've also got about 600,000 in Aura shares following a transaction that we did last year. We sold our Murchison project to Aura Gold. Fantastic board and management team. Myself, a geologist by trade, and also spent about 12 or 13 years in finance as an analyst and a little bit in corporate finance. Craig McGowan, a gentleman broker, investment banker, one of the real true gentlemen when it comes to the broking community. A lot of experience. John Forward, many of you will know from the Lower Resources Fund, very well tapped into the market across the juniorverse, very, very well, and adds a lot of value to the team. And last but definitely not least, Rick Yates, very much a boffin geo, adds a lot of geological firepower to the board. So lots of grey hair, lots of experience, and people who've been there, done that. And the recent addition to the team, Anna Price, she's my exploration manager, joined in January this year, has spent about 6 years running around Oman and Portugal looking for copper and lithium, and then after that spent about 4 years at Sandfire. So very, very switched on geo, and obviously has got a lot of copper experience. So just having a quick look at the projects that we've got, 5 projects, all located in WA, so very much WA focused. All good quality geology, as I mentioned before, and all in key mineral provinces. 4 of the 5 projects are 100% owned by SEPA, with the Barbed Wire Terrace, which is a 50-50 JV with Buru Energy. Zooming into our first project, Skeleton Rocks. This is located near Southern Cross. Great location. You can get in your car at 8 a.m. and be there at lunchtime, providing you don't speed, of course. 678 square k, so it's a decent land package. It follows a couple of major shears. It is in farming country, but the definite benefits with that, we've already got access agreements in place, but it also means that the project is crisscrossed by lots of roads, and access is actually very, very good. It is prospective for a number of different commodities, orogenic gold through the shears. You've got nickel, as well as lithium there, which has sort of only come to light recently when we've been doing our sort of historic data review, and there's a few pegmatites that sort of popped up in the historical drilling from the 90s that weren't assessed. So that's something that we also need to get our head around a bit more. So the historic work that's done has already identified some anomalous nickel, and we need to go back and follow that up. The data review that we've done recently, we were going to go in and do an auger program pretty soon. However, that data review has actually upgraded some of the prospects that we had. So we're actually going to delay that auger and probably go in with air core drilling. But unfortunately, given that we're in the wheat belt, we just need to wait for the crops to come off. So whilst the prospects have been upgraded, we just need to wait and go in with a better quality drilling method. So that's very much one of the key focuses for the remainder of the year. Patterson North. So this is fair way up north. Outstanding address. Big land holding, over 1,000 square k's. We're surrounded to the north by FMG and to the south by Rio and Antipa. It's near Rio's Winu deposit and not far away from Antipa's Calibre and Magnum deposits. Highly prospective area. The key driver of mineralisation in this part of the world are granitic intrusives, and they drive the heat flow which enables the fluids to sort of move around and percolate and then follow the structures. So we've already identified multiple different intrusives within the project, and they're key targets that we need to follow up. The other aspect to this too, and I guess the elephant in the room on Patterson North, is that it used to be a joint venture with Rio Tinto. They pulled out in January this year. They spent over $6 million in assisting us progress the project, and they're fantastic joint venture partners, but they pulled out to focus on other parts of their global portfolio. The other benefit, I suppose, of Rio pulling out is we have a lot of targets that we want to test that weren't quite Rio size targets, I suppose, and they're also very much copper focused, whereas we've got a lot of gold structural targets that we want to follow. So in hindsight, I think that's probably a bit of a blessing in disguise, that we can go out and actually have a crack at this. And also junior exploration is very different to if it's being funded by a very large company and the style and method that you go about it. So I actually think it's going to be a very good positive to us. So the project's already had multiple rounds of drilling, air core, diamond and RC. It's had about 150 holes done to date, which sounds like a reasonable amount, but when you've got 1,000 square kilometres and a lot of areas remain untested, so we're pretty keen on getting stuck into those. It's had a couple of rounds of geophysics, and all of those, and plus with assistance from the brainpower from some of the Rio geos, we've got a really good idea of the understanding of the geology and the structures of the area. So there still remains a lot of work to do. We're pretty excited about what this could all mean. And we'll look to get out and do either air core or RC drilling later on this year. So very much a case of watch this space on Patterson North. Very much elephant country, as sort of Chrissy was tapping into, but of the gold and copper variety rather than the grey animal type variety. At Barbed Wire Terrace, this is our JV with Buru Energy. Really, really interesting concept here. 620 square k's of granted tenements, so again another big chunky land holding. Buru Energy, our JV partners, fantastic partners. Obviously they're an energy or gas and energy company, which is a bit unusual for a junior explorer looking for hard rock minerals to be tied up with an energy company, but we've been able to tap into their outstanding knowledge and their databases. So we've been able to use a lot of seismic interpretations, and they've got fantastic understanding and geological knowledge of the basin stratigraphy, which is pretty important here. So we're targeting Mississippi Valley type lead zinc deposits. They're analogous to the Leonard Shelf lead zinc mineralisation that you see on the other side of the Fitzroy Trough. This is pretty important because the Leonard Shelf mineralisation, a number of large deposits that were mined for multiple years, a lot of those were either stuck out at surface or pretty close to surface, and that's why they were found. They're all the fluids have flowed up the Pinnacle Fault. Our concept is that those same fluids have also flowed up on the other side at the southern end of the Fenton Fault. However, we've got about 100 metres of cover, so if there's any mineralisation there, it hasn't been seen. So this is the first time that this area is really being explored for this sort of concept. We did 4 diamond holes into our project, very broad space, 20 kilometres apart, and definitely demonstrated proof of concept. We had anomalous lead and zinc in all of the holes, and in the right rock types that we're looking for. So very much a big fan of what this could potentially yield. Next work will be a detailed gravity geophysics program on ground. and that'll give us an idea to generate targets for follow-up drilling next year. Geo Anna, she was up on site last week actually meeting with the traditional owners, just taking them through the gravity survey. So work is well and truly underway there. At Wolf Basin, again, another large prospective tenement package, 780 square Ks, following looking for a large sediment-hosted copper, lead, zinc deposit. As you can see from that colourful image, we've already got some good copper anomalism that we need to follow up. And we've got 80 Ks of strike of the prospective horizon here. So we have done a little bit of drilling to date. However, that was technically didn't succeed, largely because of the drilling method that was used. So we need to get back in there, probably do a little bit more geophysics, and then follow up with a bit more drilling. And last but not least, Warralong Gold Project, again, large-scale, high prospective concept, over 1,000 square kilometres in the Pilbara. This concept it follows the Lala-Rook shear zone. As you can see from there, Lala-Rook is parallel to the Tabba Tabba. The Tabba Tabba has got a number of large deposits associated with it, one of which is De Grey's large Hemi deposit. So still a lot more work to do there. Prospective for gold and potentially some lithium, tin, tantalum, pegmatite. So we need to do a bit more work up there. And as you can see, there's a picture there of being up in the field. Anna and Dave, my two geos, were up there a couple of weeks ago, rock chip sampling, etc. So very interested to see how this one pans out. So just to sum up, look, highly leveraged to exploration success. We've got a market cap of about 3 and an EV of less than 1 million, which, given the quality of the projects and the size and the scale I've got, is just ludicrous value. Really good quality projects, good financial position. As I said, over 2 million in cash, and we've got 600,000 in Aura shares. Active exploration over the next half. So we've just spent the last sort of 6 months or so doing all the hard work behind the scenes, getting all our databases and targeting up and running, and now we're going to get out in the field and get some stuff done. And like I touched on before, we're using this time in the market as a really good opportunity to get out and about and assess some projects and look to refine the portfolio, and we're sort of open to anything and everything as long as it's sensible and it's a good deal for everyone. So thanks very much for listening to the Sleeper Story.
I like that. Well done. I like that, Andrew. Anything and everything as long as it is sensible. All right. Glenn Grayson, come and join us. This is Aruma Resources Managing Director, Glenn Grayson. He's going to talk about Aruma's brand new copper and uranium portfolio. So you're a pretty happy chap here. And from what I hear, they may be making it up the top of your billing list. Is that right?
Well, that's my plan.
That's
yes.
your plan. He likes a plan. He's got 3 new projects, and I think one of them's over in the Gordon Creighton. So we touched on that a little bit this morning with Copper Search. Really interesting area, lots of upside. So let's hear how these guys are going to exploit it and take themselves straight up. Would you please make him very, very welcome?
Thank you very much, Chrissy. Thank you for coming along and listening to my presentation here for Aruma. As just said, recently announced the new acquisition about 3 weeks ago, 3 new projects, one in South Australia in the Gordon Creighton, just south of Copper Search there, and 2 projects up in Mount Isa, so just north of Mount Isa in Queensland. So this was really brought about after spending a fair bit of time last year reviewing the current projects, really getting no value. When Andrew just talked about EV there, Aruma's EV earlier this year was actually negative, so more money in the bank than what our market cap was. So the market didn't value the projects that we had. Really thought we were doing some excellent work, putting out some good results, particularly gold, but not getting any value from the market. So we thought we needed a bit of a refresh, come across these projects late last year, earlier this year, and just progress the slide so you can see what I'm talking about. Disclaimer, and like the commodities and the location. So as a company, we had 4 metrics we wanted to check. One of them was the high demand commodities. Certainly had the feel earlier this year, late last year, that copper or gold was the commodities that short to medium and then long term really look strong. As an industry, junior explorers in the gold sector really haven't got the uplift from good work and spending the money that the producers have been receiving. But copper, that felt like that was a little bit of a different situation. So, as I said, come across the three projects that were gold, copper with a little bit of a uranium flavour, and we really liked the idea of transitioning to the copper. The second check we needed was the location. South Australian government are certainly really proactive and assisting the exploration industry, and Queensland government now, the 5-year moratorium on tenement holding costs really help, and they're really promoting work in the Isa district as well. So the location was important. You don't get much better place to look for copper than Mount Isa, and the Gawler Craton, we're about 140 kilometres north of Olympic Dam, so we're in the location to find a significant ore body. Major discovery potential. There's a bit of a default there by checking box 2. The potential for discovery was there, particularly Mount Isa, Queensland. There's data on Queensland comparing it with West Australia's exploration spend over about the last 20 years. West Australia beats Queensland by about 7 times. So when you go into Queensland, it really does feel underexplored. So the potential for a major discovery, I think, is pretty significant there as well. And the fourth box there is exploration to really drive some shareholder value. I think everyone realises that if the first 3 boxes get checked there, then some good hard work, you'll get box 4 done as well. So that's the rationale. Corporate snapshot. Share price is pretty similar to what you'll see from a lot of juniors over the last 12 months. It's been a really tough time for us. Market cap right now is at about 3 million, and I've got $2.5 million in the bank, so an EV of just $500,000. So the projects hadn't been getting valued, and really leveraged to any exploration success with Aruma at the moment. So that's the project portfolio at the moment. I've still got 3 projects in Western Australia that I still want to progress, but the new projects there, Whelan in South Australia and the Gawler Craton, prospective for copper, gold and uranium, and up in Mount Isa, the 2 projects there, Fiery Creek and Portala, both north of Mount Isa, and really underexplored patches of ground there. So we zoom into South Australia. It's the Whelan project. You can see there, it's about 140 kilometres north of Olympic Dam. Really good access. The Oodnadatta track goes straight through the middle of the project. 2 tenements. It's just under 2,000 square kilometres, so it's a pretty decent chunk of land. And the Copper Search are just north there, so that's their peak project. They're currently drilling their Paradise Dam targets. So we're certainly eager to see what they test there for their most prospective targets. Zooming in a bit more into Whelan, we've got a couple of targets there at the moment to go and test once we get access to the ground. So there's a little bit of work to get access with the Arabana Corporation, the traditional owners. But once we get on the ground, we've got an ISCG target out to the east. That's created through a coincident geophysical signatures of gravity and magnetics. As ISCG suggests, iron oxide makes the rocks a lot more dense, so it's the gravity part of that signature that's really important. And going forward, that's what we're going to focus on, is doing some detailed ground gravity and working up targets for future drill testing. Over to the eastern side of the project, we've got the uranium target that's at surface. That's been created with a couple of remote sensing layers. So the radiometrics, the uranium layer of that lights up for this part of the lake system. It's about 4 kilometres long, about 1.5 kilometres across. And the second image there is a hyperspectral analysis showing helium seeping out of the ground. So helium is produced by the decay of uranium. That's the theory. So the two combined suggest it's a good uranium target. And it would be an in situ leach proposition as well, similar to what Cauldron Energy sort of presented earlier. So it doesn't have to be high grade. It is a cheap setup cost and a simple acid leach and pumping out. That system's already undertaken in other parts of South Australia. Shifting across to Queensland, so the two projects there, Fiery Creek's about 200 kilometres north of Mount Isa, Batala's about 80 kilometres north of Mount Isa, and we just think they're really underexplored patches of ground. You can see Fiery Creek there. Out to the west is Glencore, and north and east is Anglo American, so surrounded by the majors. Fiery Creek itself has been held by the majors for about the last 25 or 30 years, and that's because it ticks their box for area selection. So it's got the right geology, it's got the fine grain reactive carbonate sediments that predominantly hosted the Mount Isa style ore bodies. So tick their box for area selection. They go in there, they're looking for 50 million tonne Mount Isa sized ore bodies. Mount MIM were in there in the 90s. They did some surface sampling that had some high grade rock chip samples off a Gossanes outcrop. Had some malachite on it. Didn't do any other further work. BHP picked it up. Again, no work on the ground, looking for a 50 million tonne ore body. Sumitomo held it from 2007. They're the only ones that actually did any drilling in the region. So they've got some core holes that I think the best result was about 4 metres at 1.5% copper. So we know the rocks are the right rocks for these kinds of ore bodies, and we know it's fertile for copper as well. One of the interesting parts about the Sumitomo drilling was one of the holes had some hematite alteration in it. That's more familiar for an IOCG style deposit, which is the Cloncurry sort of style deposits you get in the Isa belt. So we think we've got potential for both styles of mineralisation in the region. Following Sumitomo, Rio picked it up. They picked it up having 7 targets that they wanted to test, and after 4 years and no field work, they sterilised the targets through desktop studies and dropped the ground. So there lies the potential. We're not looking for a 50 million tonne ore body, we'll look for something a little smaller that do the work properly. So that's the magnetics of Fiery Creek. You can see that it's pretty fuzzy. It's not the detailed magnetics that the rest of the belt has. The same with the gravity. So we've got to go in there and do some detailed gravity work and come up with some targets. In the near term, we will do some ground geophysics on where we know there's copper mineralisation at surface and in drilling, do some ground EM or IP and see if there's some targets that drill test, hopefully this field season. And the gravity, more field detailed gravity will come up with some targets for next year's field season. And that's Portala. You can see there the magnetics, it's much more detailed. It's right adjacent to 29 Metals Capricorn project. That's on care and maintenance at the moment. That's in the gunpowder formation, the fine grain reactive sediments. The geology at Portala is a little bit different, so we get the right rocks on the far west and the far eastern side, and the middle part of the tenement is quartzite sarcoses and the Eastern Creek volcanics. You can see from the magnetics there's still a lot of late stage structures which does control the copper ore bodies at Capricorn. So we think they're still really important in the volcanics and the sediments. And in fact, we've got some sample that's got some microcrystalline malachite that's from a quartz vein in the middle of the volcanics that Ashton Mining in 1988 come across in their diamond exploration days. They've got a 2 gram gold sample from that quartz vein. They did some drilling looking for gold, but there's actually 18 metres at 0.25% copper, 5 metres at 0.5% lead and some zinc in that hole. So we think the potential's there. So straight away there's some ground geophysics can get done to see if there's something to target with a bit deeper drilling. But that's the last time the project was drilled in 1988. So again, there lies the potential. So indicative exploration, it will be a lot of ground gravity surveying to get done, both South Australia and Queensland. While that's getting done, there'll be a lot of detailed field mapping, field sampling. We will work on some other ground geophysics for the more detailed targets in the near term. Hopefully have some space for drill testing them this field season. But the detailed gravity will be more for targeting for the next field season and progressively drilling our priority targets. So still got 3 projects in Western Australia. Saltwater's up near Newman in the Ashburton, Mount Dean's near Norseman, and Salmon Gums is down towards Esperance. So Salmon Gums, high-grade gold proposition, Norseman-style mineralisation. Drilled a hole last year that had 6 metres at 10 grams gold in it, and the market didn't appreciate it. So that's where, as a junior explorer, you're spending your money's pretty valuable, so you're spending that on getting good results, but not getting the benefit from the market. Did do some air core drilling earlier this year, which was just north of OD6's Circle Valley prospect and Mika Metals Circle Valley resource. And that had some good grades of clay-hosted rare earths, and the market did actually like that. So we'll focus a little bit on that. Up at Saltwater near Newman, 140 kilometres southwest of Newman. That's a 450 square kilometre patch of ground that's really unexplored. We've got a lot of a major unconformity in the district, the Bresner-Hanweilu unconformity. So there's prospective for uranium, rare earths. Over in the Saltwater Pool area itself, we've got some nice grades of hard rock rare earths, but we've also got some rock chip samples that are going 40% manganese and a lot of cobalt and copper and zinc as well. So it's prospective for quite a few things. Over in the western side, we did some soil sampling last year and we come back with a sample that was 0.4 grams gold with associated arsenic and antimony. So we're about to do a large-ish soil sampling program up at Saltwater starting in the next few weeks. Following up both those areas. And the last one's Mount Dean's. It's a small lease just south of Norseman in the Mount Dean's pegmatite field. Trying to get approval to drill a hole there at the moment, diamond core hole, to get some sample to do some detailed met test work. So we've been waiting for environmental approval for that for quite a while. It's on a little bit of pause. So they're the currently 6 projects that Aruma have got that will be progressing. But this one I learnt from Chrissy. Remember Aruma? It's an Indigenous word that means a happy place. So.
It does. Well done. Good on you, buddy. I love it. It is. Happy place. And you guys will be very, very happy if that all comes to fruition. Well done to you, Mr. Grayson. All right, team. These 3 creatures, least bitten bird, short-eared owl, salamander. Do you know where they aren't? They aren't on the site of a proposed new lithium refinery in Canada, which is great news for Lithium Universe. And this fellow here, Gunnar Abel, who is the ED of Lithium Universe, so he's going to tell you far more interesting and important facts about this proposed refinery. Would you please make him very, very welcome?
Thanks, Chrissy. The aim of this presentation today is to leave you in no uncertain terms with what the lithium conversion gap in North America actually is. So on the lithium supply side, there's over 40 companies in Quebec that are working to deliver in excess of over 500 million tonnes at greater than 1% lithium. Now, these companies are your household names now: Patriot Battery Metals, Winsome Resources, Siona, Allchem James Bay. On the downstream demand side, we've got over 20 different battery manufacturers. These include Northvolt, General Motors, and of course Tesla. So by 2028, we're expecting in excess of 1,000 gigawatts of cathode or battery capacity to come to market, which in turn will require in excess of 850,000 tonnes of lithium chemicals. Now, current conversion predominantly happens in China. So 95% of all conversion happens in China, where spodumene is exported into China, and then the cathode or battery manufacturers are importing back the lithium carbonate. At the same time that this is happening, it's become apparent that Canada is forcing a critical minerals strategy. And this is evidenced by Sinamine's forced divestiture from Power Metals Corp and relinquishment of their spodumene offtake agreement, citing a multi-step security review. Coupled with a burgeoning EV market, it's clear that Canada is forcing a downstream solution. So at the same time as you have Canada and the US decoupling themselves from this Chinese market, it leaves the continent in a very precarious situation because there are currently no operating lithium converters in North America. Planned capacity by 2028 is actually only 100,000 tonnes per annum, and that's all been spoken for. So we've got 850,000 tonnes per annum of demand and only 100,000 tonnes of supply. So this is the lithium conversion gap. And this is Lithium Universe Limited, committed to closing the lithium conversion gap in North America. Now, there are a number of challenges in closing this conversion gap. The first is that lithium conversion itself is a complex chemicals business. Lithium is also a very immature or young industry still, which results in limited lithium experience and limited expertise. This in turn results in many failures and technical difficulties for some projects, even amongst existing lithium producers. Our real point of difference is that we have a team of experienced lithium operators. We also have proven technology. So our executive chairman is original lithium trailblazer and experienced lithium operator, Mr. Iggy Tan. Iggy ran Greenbushes Lithium in 1995 and was the first to commission a lithium carbonate plant in Australia. He was also one of the first mining executives with an eye on the lithium-ion battery future, some 30 years ago. Iggy and his team built Mount Cattlin, rated at circa 137,000 tonnes per annum. They also built the Jiangsu lithium carbonate plant, rated at 17,000 tonnes per annum. When Iggy first joined Galaxy, their market cap was tiny, less than $10 million, before he put them on a path to reach $2.5 billion at merger with Orocobre. Galaxy is still recognised as the first large-scale integrated mine-to-refinery project of its kind. We've also got Greenbushes veteran Mr. Pat Scallon on our board. Pat ran Greenbushes for over 25 years and oversaw production increase from 200,000 tonnes to in excess of 1.4 million tonnes. We're also very fortunate to have downstream lithium technology expert Dr. Jinwon Liu. There is nothing that Dr. Liu doesn't know about this space. Not only is Dr. Liu former Galaxy, but he designed and commissioned the world-famous lithium carbonate plant in Jiangsu. Rounding out our lithium dream team of operators is former GM of Galaxy, Mr. Terry Stark. Former plant manager, Roger Pova. We've got John Loxton. John built Jiangsu with Iggy and Jinwon. And our most recent addition is the former CFO of Galaxy, Dr. John Zabolski. So in a very short period of time, we've put together a team of experienced operators who've designed, built, and funded complex lithium projects in very difficult markets. Stepping through a typical lithium mine development timeline, from maiden through scoping, PFS and DFS, can take upwards of 8 to 10 years, sometimes even longer. Compare this to what our dream team achieved at Mount Cattlin, from maiden through to first product in only 3 years. They did this by skipping scoping and PFS stages, whilst running a number of other processes, all in parallel, and whilst leveraging an incredible team culture. And here is Mount Cattlin, a 1 million tonne per annum hard rock spodumene mining operation, leveraging 4-stage crushing into dense media separation to produce circa 137,000 tonnes per annum. Now let's have a look at what's happening down in Kwinana at the Tianqi lithium hydroxide plant, where they commenced construction in 2017, 2018, and are still only operating at 8% of design. That's 8 years later. Capital cost blowouts, extreme, close to $400 million now. And it's not much better at Albemarle's Kemerton plant. Lengthy construction delays, lengthy commissioning periods, and still operating at less than 50% of design. Most recently, they announced that that's a parachute in Chinese expertise to help close this gap. And if we turn the page to Canada, the story stays the same. North American Lithium commenced in 2014, and after spending over $250 million to produce only 100,000 tonnes lithium carbonate, filed for Chapter 11 a year later in 2015. Nemaska Lithium completed their DFS in 2018, and after spending over $400 million, failed to reach startup a year later in 2019. So why have some of these projects failed? Well, there's a distinct lack of operating direction at design, there's a lack of management oversight at design, and there's limited commissioning experience and expertise. And this is one of the core reasons why our Lithium Dream Team are all made up of experienced lithium operators. It all starts at design. So compare those aforementioned projects to what our team achieved at Jiangsu, from breaking ground through project completion and commissioning in an astonishing 25 months. Capital cost was a more than reasonable $120 million. We operated at design, all whilst delivering the highest quality lithium carbonate to market. And here is Jiangsu, a phenomenal project. What most don't know is that at the time this was built, it was the largest of its kind in the world. Jiangsu is a Western-style continuous processing plant, which to this day remains the gold standard in quality process control in China. It's still operational at above nameplate at 19,000 tonnes per annum. So our solution for closing this lithium conversion gap in North America is the Bécancour Lithium Refinery. This 16,000 tonne per annum battery-grade lithium carbonate plant will be located in Bécancour, Quebec. It will be based on the proven Jiangsu design. We're using the same flow sheet, the same equipment, the same suppliers. This winterised version of Jiangsu will also be able to handle spodumene types from all around the world. Hatched Engineering has been engaged to complete the DFS level study. They're a world-renowned engineering firm, but most importantly, they built Jiangsu with Iggy and the Dream Team. So why have we chosen to go down the carbonate over hydroxide path? Well, we have a proven track record in lithium carbonate. Lithium carbonate is also the primary feedstock to LFP batteries, and there's been a big switch to LFP. Late last year, Tesla announced the switch to LFP, citing improved safety and reduced costs. We've also seen that a number of Chinese converters have now moved away from hydroxide to carbonate. In December of last year, we completed our Bécancour Lithium Refinery location study. We landed on the Bécancour Industrial Park as the preferred location. It's perfect. It's got rail, road, and is a hop, skip and a jump away from a deep water port. Our initial design incorporates that first train of 16,000 tonnes per annum, but we've retained optionality for a further 2 trains to bring that cumulative production total up to 50,000 tonnes per annum to make a real dent in that 750,000 tonne lithium conversion gap we referenced earlier. Here is the flow sheet for the refinery. Very unusual to see something like this published so early in the piece, but speaks volumes to the confidence that our team has that they're on the right path. It's based on the proven Jiangsu flow sheet, and I've taken the liberty of highlighting the purification flow to show the production of battery-grade carbonate. We've also completed the refinery layout study. Here you can see components of the refinery, including the beta spodumene storage bins, sulfation kiln, calciner, storage shed for the spodumene and residue, as well as where we're pulling out the impurities, making the carbonate and storing the carbonate. Quickly walking through the lithium refinery flow. Spodumene comes from the storage shed to the top of the calciner, where once it's cooled, it's stored in the beta spodumene storage bin. We then go through the process of sulfation, where the spodumene is turned into solution, impurities extracted, and all residue stored in the residue storage shed. The next stage is where we then make the lithium carbonate and store it in the product warehouse. The final step is extracting the sodium sulfate byproduct. At the same time, we've been conducting MET testing on multiple sources of spodumene, sourced from all around the world. This includes Australia, Africa, and Latin America. This will allow us to build a suitably robust refinery to be able to take ore from anywhere in the world and have it shipped to our refinery in Bécancour, whilst the Canadian exploration and mining markets in lithium continue to mature and develop. We've got a conversion business model. So currently OEMs like Tesla and Ford are entering into offtake agreements with the likes of Piedmont and Liontown here in Australia. That spodumene is then converted in China. Well, our aim is to embed ourselves as part of that, in that OEM supply chain and be based in Canada. So we'll have a take or pay conversion model where we're able to pay back the cost of the refinery whilst negating the market risks associated with all the price fluctuations in lithium. We're also able to leverage exceptionally cheap electricity prices. Due to the hydropower that exists, we're able to source electricity at 2.6 cents per kilowatt hour. We've made a number of other project advancements over the last 3 to 6 weeks, including that application to the Hydro-Quebec. We've completed our environmental survey. We've also completed soil contamination desktop studies and engaged First Nations. Our teams recently returned from Canada, where they've commenced discussions with OEMs. So in summary, we've got the Lithium Dream Team, the proven management team with a proven track record. We've got a proven technology stack, and we've also got the Bécancour Lithium Refinery. So there's no better time than now to join us on our mission to help close that lithium conversion gap in North America.
Oh. That was a very dramatic ending. I like that, Gurno. Thank you very much. Thanks, buddy. That was great. It was an interesting team. All right. Our last presentation today is conspicuous by his absence. But before he flew out of the country, which is what he's done, he's had to flit off to North America because they're chasing a big uranium discovery there, and there's some, I don't know what's happening, but he had to go, so it must be important. So Peter Morehouse is on your program from Basin Energy, so he was supposed to be presenting. So what I've got him to do before he's left the country is to do a pre-record for us. So it is up to date. It was done this week. At the end of said pre-recorded session, if you look up the back there, raising her hand is Adil. So this is Adil. Hello to Adil. Adil is their exploration manager. Can you put your hand up again, Adil? Both hands. She's got two. That's very handy because she's got a lot to do. She is their exploration manager, kick-ass geologist. So any questions that you might have regarding the projects can be directed to her. She also has a fabulous supply of Kit Kats. That's where I was getting my Kit Kats from yesterday. So I invite you to watch Basin's presentation for 2024. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. I trust that the conference has been a great success today. Genuinely so sorry we couldn't make it for this trip. Unfortunately, something popped up at the last minute, meaning I couldn't be there. Our exploration manager, Odile Monfray, is there, so she's at the Base Energy booth. Please swing around, ask her some really technical questions. And if you've got any questions about the company or my presentation today, please, she'll pass on my contact details and drop me a note, and I'll be sure to get back to you over the next few days. Okay, so talking today about Basin Energy, exploring high-grade uranium in the Athabasca, ASX code BSN. We've got our competent persons and disclaimer statement in front of you there. Please take the time to read it seriously. It's on the website and all our prezos, so yeah, take the time to review. Why Basin Energy? Why the Athabasca? Basin's a bit of a different narrative to most of the explorers on the ASX at the moment with uranium, and that is that we're a pure play uranium exploration company. We set up a couple of years ago specifically to position ourselves for that, and that goes with our management team, our board, and our current asset portfolio. We're currently focused on North America, specifically the Athabasca. Talk a little bit about that. And we're well funded. So we've got some cash in the bank. At the end of last quarter, we had just over 5 mil. We have spent a bit because we've been busy, we've been drilling, we've been doing geophysics. All of our projects have had work on, but we're still solidly funded for the next phase of exploration later this year. As I mentioned, currently we are in America. We believe that North America specifically is a phenomenal place for uranium at the moment, with the emerging macro, with the demand there for a stable energy supply, and the incentives that we're seeing through the States and through Canada to ensure that they have a solid nuclear industry. Specifically at the moment, our exploration projects are just in the Athabasca Basin. So this is, for those who are less familiar with uranium, home to some of the world's biggest deposits, highest grade operations in the world. That's why the likes of Orano, Cameco, Denison have some of their main operations here. It's been a uranium producer for in excess of 50 years and a top 3 global uranium producer for over 45 of them. So with that experience and that exposure, it brings you a knowledge base and an understanding of the sector that a lot of parts of the world don't have. So that's reflected in its regulatory environment, and it's consistently ranked as a solid jurisdiction by the likes of the Fraser Institute from that framework, which is brought by that experience in the uranium space. Our projects are located nearby some of these major deposits, only a few kilometres from some of the big mines in some cases, and we'll show you a map of that in a few moments' time. As I mentioned, we were set up as a uranium explorer, so our skill sets are exactly that. My background's exploration geology, specifically in uranium. Our exploration manager is a uranium-orientated professional, and our board as well has some solid skill sets in that space. Not to mention our joint venture partners who bring some phenomenal knowledge and some phenomenal exposures and contacts. Okay, Athabasca Basin shown on the screen in front of you here. We have the sandstone, so the younger rock type in the dark greys and the basements in the lighter greys. And each of those dots on there is a uranium mine or deposit. The whites being mines and the greens being deposits. Now, I always like to bring this back to my own experiences, and I like to bring it back to Australian experience. Australia is home to some phenomenal uranium resources. For me, I spent a lot of my time looking for another Jabiluka. Jabiluka is an amazing deposit. It's about 350 ballpark million pounds to about 0.4, 0.5% uranium. The big one here is McArthur River. That's about 675 million pounds, almost double the amount of metal, but it's 17% uranium. So 0.5, 17%. These things are big and they're high grade. And that's why you've had this continued history of mining, because when you find one, you can quite often make them work. Other notable occurrences, some of those grades there, Hurricane deposit, 50 million pounds of 35%, just mind blowing. But you explore in places which have continued to provide both returns for shareholders and exploration success, and you're continuing to see those discoveries. So this chart, some of you may have seen previously, either me giving for this company or other companies, shows that exploration history from 1970s through, and you see each of those U's being a big uranium discovery. Now, I've had a few people say, "Oh, people, look at this. There's only one big discovery. It's McArthur River." No. All of those U's are awesome uranium deposits. Now, it's just the McArthur River is phenomenally big. The real thing I like to draw people's attention to on this diagram, though, is post-2011, post-Fukushima, we've still had exploration success here. The things like Triple R being discovered, Griffin, Arrow, NextGen's Arrow, I'll talk a little bit about that more in a moment. Hurricane deposit, ISO Energies, that's the almost 50 or 35% deposit, which was discovered a couple of years ago. And with that brings shareholder return. So even in a uranium downtime, the guys at NextGen, you know, they were pushing when uranium was sitting at 30, 40 bucks per pound, market cap of 30 million bucks, which is still pretty good. Post-discovery, doubled overnight, and they're currently sitting at a $4 or $5 billion market cap off the back of great management, but fundamentally a very good discovery. More recent exploration success, the likes of 92E, who is now acquired by Arthur Energy at the GMZ zone, you know, lower grade, but still 43 metres at 0.6%, basically shallow mineralisation. Baseload, James and the crew at AKO, similar results, and then our joint venture partner, Catalaska, unfortunately not in a joint venture with us, but in a joint venture with Cameco, MacArthur West. Earlier this year, they released almost 17 metres of 13.7% uranium, which is a pretty exciting hole to be drilling, trust me, in an exploration sense. Okay, quick geology lesson. This is directly relevant to, again, a competitive advantage of looking for opportunities which perhaps have been overlooked in the past. But we have a cross-section here. We have the younger sandstone, so that's the Athabasca Basin shown in the light. The darker greys is the older basement-type rocks, and the green is glacial overburden, so it's enough to cover radiometric responses, enough to make life a little bit awkward. Now, the focus for exploration in this part of the world has been at that contact between those younger and older rock types, and that's where you've had these unconformity deposits. So typically the Athabasca is known for unconformity mineralization, the contact between younger and older. And there's phenomenal success and discoveries made by that, but the model there was drilled to the contact, drilled 20 metres past it. If you don't see the body mineralization, you move on. But if you think about 40 years of exploration on that, quite clearly, the shallower targets are starting to be ticked off, and we're getting deeper and deeper and deeper to explore. So when you come and look at this as a junior's perspective, it gets pretty hard when you're getting some of the deepest, darkest parts of the Athabasca Basin here. Now, roll on, I talked about it again because it's a phenomenal win for the guys, but NextGen's discovery of Arrow. This thing is a different model. This thing is what we call basement hosted mineralization. There's about 200 metres of barren rock between that contact that everyone's focused on and the top of the mineralization at Arrow. They got the right rock types, got the right structure. They said we don't need the unconformity, and they've proven that model works. Now, why is that so important? Well, there's no reason why you can't have that right rock type and right structure without the sandstone basically sitting at surface on the edges of the Athabasca. So where the sandstone has been eroded away, but you still have the right fundamentals. Now that's critical, partly because people haven't been exploring there, because no sandstone, no model, so there's space. Been a glacier on the top, enough to cover a big response, a big mine, you could walk over the top of it, you wouldn't know about it. But then, because it's shallow, you're drilling a couple of 100 metre to 300 to 400 metre holes, rather than having to drill those super deep ones. So that's important from a junior's perspective. So now, into basin, I've told you enough about the Athabasca. North Millennium and Marshall, we're looking at traditional conformity targets, and our Geeky project is back to that basement-hosted Arrow targets. So Geeky next door to 92E GMZs, and North Millennium and Marshall next door to the Millennium deposit. Focus of this talk will be on Geeky. It's where we've done most of our work. This project genuinely is started off from a very early stage of early knowledge base, if you like. Early work's done was a bit of basic EM, radiometrics and prospecting, and they identified some base metals, a bit of uranium with moly, a little bit of lead, zinc, but the sort of things which generally indicate that the system is real, but no sandstone, no real model. There was not a lot of work done from 1980 through to about 2007, when there was an EM survey flown. If you think about what was happening in the world in 2007, uranium was pretty flavoursome at the time. And then nothing else then until we moved in, and we said, right, okay, Arrow model, what do we need? Well, we need structure. Let's go do some airborne radiometrics. We need rock types. Let's go do some EM to try to pick up the rock types. And let's use radiometrics to see if we can pick out any anomalism through the glacials. We generated a few targets, and we rolled out our first drill program in 2023. And it was from pretty exciting results. I'll run through those in a moment. We then did some Airborne gravity, and we've just done another small follow-up phase of drilling to start to understand what that gravity is showing us, which brings us to the present day. Okay, so looking for shallow targets. First drill program, 4 of our 8 holes intersected uranium. 4 out of 8, that's pretty good. Now, not all grade, I accept that. Highest grade was about 0.27% over only half a metre, but it's proof that there's uranium in this system and it's real. Elevated pathfinders, the metals that float around with the uranium, were present. And there's evidence of some reasonably sized structures, some good alteration paths. Now, I do like to point out the deposit footprints on the bottom right-hand side of that diagram on your screen at the moment. When you think about the scale of this project area, these things are small. So taking this systematic staged approach and de-risking it as best as you can with whatever data is available is critical to exploring. We then went in and did some gravity, airborne gravity, and the reason being is that, okay, well, we think this system's real. Is there any way of mapping where this system's most intense? And we've picked out a series of gravity lows, the logic being where these fluids have been most intense, the old rocks should be most altered, and it should give you a lower gravity. And that was the basis for this last drill program we've just done. It's fair to say we got some mixed results. We got some phenomenal successes, and we got some pretty disappointing bits as well. Now, we didn't hit any massive amounts of radioactive anomalism, and there's been a recent press release which points that out. But I love this photo, and anyone who has a bit of a knowledge of rocks and geology, I'm sure will look at this and go, guys, this is exciting, and please get Odile chatting about this. What we've done here is compared our alteration patterns to the alteration patterns basement-hosted world-class deposits. When I say we're seeing the right fundamental ingredients, you look at images like this, and I'm sorry, it's pretty obvious in those photos. We've got the right keys, we've got the right rock types, we've got the right high alteration, we've got the right anomalism, we just don't have the uranium yet. So we'll continue to assess how best to hone in on this. But this system, something's exciting is happening in this system. On that screen in front of you shows where we have tagged the best alteration in that drilling in those key photos. And you'll see that it's right on the edge of a big gravity low. Hindsight's an amazing thing. We tested some of the regional gravity targets first, and we were pretty disappointed. We were finding that we were drilling thicker glacial sequence covers, which may have explained that gravity low. And then these were the last couple of holes we did, and we started to tag one of the lows next door to our some of the success that we had in our first phase of drilling. And lo and behold, we started to see these key ingredients. We did have to stop the program. We could have kept drilling. There's certainly a few more holes that need doing here, but unfortunately the melt season started, so that was the end of this program for now. But as you can see in that image there is some tantalizing gravity lows, having learned what we've learned from this, seen what we've seen in the drilling, that require a systematic step out and de-risking. We're still awaiting the geochemistry. We want to see what pathfinders and see what metals are floating around in that, what isotope data is happening with that. And we've also done some samples to allow us to refine that modelling of the geophysics data sets that we have. And as soon as those results come back, there'll be an update and we'll start to map out what the next phases of work at Kiki are going to look like. Briefly on our North Manuel Marshall targets. So North Manuel Marshall, this is this traditional unconformity style. So the ones that I talked to you about, deeper targets, we're talking 700-800 meters target depths here. But the traditional model, which has some of the world's biggest deposits, so you can't look away from this. Here we look for basement conductors, we look for the right rock types shown from a graphitic bodies, and we look for faults. Now, this project's next door to Millennium. It's about 7 Ks from the Millennium deposit, about 100 million pounds of just under 4% uranium. It's about 40 Ks from MacArthur River, the big one. We have been working on this over the last few months, so we've been doing some ground geophysics. Now, first time ground geophysics has been done here. And we'll have an update on that coming to market over the next few days. Corporate overview, share price. Now, every CEO has to say the same, but we're sitting there with 100 million shares in issue, about 6.5% share price, market cap of 6.7. Cash at the end of last quarter, 5.5. As I said, we have used some of that, but still funded for more exploration. So very low EV. considering our address, considering the successes we've had to date and the tantalising results, I think that's a pretty exciting value proposition personally. Now, we will touch again on that board and management, so just the credentials there. Blake Steele's our chair. So Blake, during the last downturn, was heading up Zarga. So Zarga acquired a series of assets in the United States. They're a little bit more focused on ISR, so a little different narrative to what we're doing. But he built that up, added a lot of value, and ultimately it was taken out by Encore Energy for $200 million in February 2022. So considering the time of the sector, a phenomenal success by him, great address book, and a very different skill set to me. My background, uranium geologist, a series of companies, some of which you know, the likes of Alligator, impact over in Africa, so worked in Northern Australia, Southern Africa, and a bit in the States and the States and Canada as well, but specifically uranium experience for almost 20 years now. And Odile used to head up exploration for Orano, the big French utility mining company out of Saskatoon, over 10 years doing that work on a variety of projects in the Athabasca. Very different knowledge set to me, phenomenally technically sound, and a great asset to the team. So guys, that's us, that's Base Energy. Please swing around the booth, say hello to Odile. Thank you very much for your time, and I hope to catch up with you all in the next few weeks. Thanks. Bye.
Thanks, David. Thank you. Thank you. So you know who Odile is now. You can go down here and get a Kit Kat Chaser jet after your lunch today. And we'll see you in about half an hour's time. I will ring that bell for our final session today. So a nice powerful session to end us off today. Thanks, everyone.